I think my friend Jane is being haunted, and I'm next. It started subtly, the way these things always do. Jane inherited her great-aunt Margaret's house, a Victorian, all gables and gingerbread trim perched on a small rise overlooking the harbor in Port Agnes, Maine. Jane was ecstatic. Rent in Boston was crushing her, and the idea of owning a place, even one that smelled faintly of mothballs and regret, was a dream come true. We'd been friends since kindergarten, Jane and I. I'm Liam, by the way, freelance graphic designer, perpetually caffeinated and generally skeptical about anything that can't be explained by logic or a decent internet connection. Jane, on the other hand, she was Jane, an artist, a kindergarten teacher, a whirlwind of chaotic energy and unwavering optimism, until the house. I helped her move. The place was undeniably charming, if a little oppressive. High ceilings, dark wood paneling, and a winding staircase that creaked ominously with every step. There was this musty odor, too, like old paper and dust, that clung to the air despite our best efforts to air it out. I remember shivering as we lugged boxes up to the attic, a sprawling, unfinished space filled with cobwebs and forgotten treasures. I chalked it up to the November chill, but the feeling lingered. The first few weeks were idyllic. Jane painted the walls in vibrant colors, hung her artwork, and transformed the place into a cozy haven. She'd call me bubbling with excitement, describing the antique furniture she'd found at flea markets, the way the sunlight streamed through the stained glass window in the living room. David, her boyfriend, was less enthusiastic. He's a practical guy, an accountant. He saw the house as a money pit, a fixer-upper that would drain their savings. But Jane was happy, and that was all that mattered. Then the little things started. A teacup misplaced on the counter. A door ajar that she was sure she'd closed. Whispers in the hallway when she was alone. At first, she dismissed it as her imagination, stress from adjusting to a new life. Old houses settle, right? They make noises. But then came the nightmares. Vivid, disturbing dreams of a shadowy figure lurking in the house, its face obscured by darkness. She'd wake up in a cold sweat, heart pounding, convinced that someone or something was watching her. I started visiting more often, partly to help her unpack, partly because I was worried. I tried to be rational, to offer logical explanations. The teacup, maybe she just forgot where she put it. The whispers, the wind rattling the old windows, the nightmares, just stress. But then I started noticing things too. A cold spot in the hallway near the stairs. A fleeting glimpse of movement in my peripheral vision. The feeling of being watched even when I knew I was alone. Once I was helping Jane in the kitchen when a heavy oak door slammed shut down the hall with no apparent cause. There wasn't any wind and the house was sealed up tight. Jane's behavior began to change. The vibrant, energetic woman I knew was replaced by someone withdrawn, anxious, and perpetually exhausted. She became obsessed with the house's history, spending hours online researching her great-aunt Margaret and the previous owners. She'd call me late at night, her voice trembling, asking if I believed in ghosts. "Liam, I'm serious," she'd say. "Something's not right here. I feel like something is trying to get to me." The occurrences escalated. Objects moved more dramatically. Books fell off shelves. The whispers became clearer, more menacing. She found strange symbols scratched into the walls in the attic, crude, unsettling designs that looked almost ritualistic. One night she called me in a panic. It was standing at the foot of my bed, she sobbed. A shadow just watching me. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream. That's when I started to get really scared. I started doing my own research, trying to find some logical explanation for what was happening. I dug through old newspaper archives online, searching for any mention of the house, of Margaret, of anything that might shed light on the situation. And then I found it. An article from 1938, a gruesome story about a murder-suicide in the house. A man driven mad by jealousy had killed his wife before taking his own life. The article mentioned rumors of occult practices, of strange rituals performed in the house before the tragedy. I didn't tell Jane. I was afraid it would push her over the edge, but I couldn't ignore it. I had to know more. Jane started seeing the shadow figure during the day. It was getting closer, more defined. She described it as tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes and a malevolent grin. She was convinced it wanted something from her. David, predictably, was losing his patience. He accused Jane of being hysterical, of letting her imagination run wild. He pressured her to see a therapist, to get medication. He didn't believe her, and that was tearing them apart. One afternoon, I was helping Jane clear out the overgrown garden when I saw Mrs. Hawthorne, the elderly neighbor who lived next door, watching us from her porch. Mrs. Hawthorne was a bit of an eccentric, always dressed in black with a cloud of white hair that seemed to defy gravity. People in town said she was a witch, a recluse who dabbled in the occult. I walked over to her, figuring I had nothing to lose. "Mrs. Hawthorne," I said, "do you know anything about this house? About its history?" Her eyes, sharp and piercing, narrowed. "That house has a darkness to it," she croaked, her voice raspy with age. "A stain that never washes away. Best to leave it be, young man. Some things are better left undisturbed. Disturbed, I asked. What do you mean? She shook her head, her gaze fixed on Jane, who was weeding a flower bed. The house remembers, she whispered. It remembers the pain, the suffering. It feeds on it, and it will never be satisfied. Then she turned and shuffled back into her house, leaving me standing there, chilled to the bone. A few days later, Jane collapsed. I found her unconscious on the floor of the living room, surrounded by scattered books and papers. I called 911. At the hospital, the doctor said it was exhaustion, stress, dehydration. They ran tests, but couldn't find anything physically wrong with her. While she was resting, I returned to her house, determined to find something, anything, that would explain what was happening. I started in the attic, the place that always gave me the creeps. I searched every corner, every box, every dusty trunk, and then I found it, hidden beneath a loose floorboard, a small wooden box. Inside, a bundle of old letters, a faded diary, and a photograph. The letters were written by Jane's great-aunt Margaret to a man she identified only as E. They spoke of rituals, of sacrifices, of a pact made with something dark and ancient. The diary was even more disturbing. It described the rituals in detail, the incantations, the symbols, the blood. It spoke of a power that could be harnessed, a gateway that could be opened. The photograph was of Margaret, standing in the attic, surrounded by candles and strange symbols painted on the floor. In the background, barely visible in the shadows, was the same gaunt figure that Jane had been seeing. I realized then that Jane wasn't just being haunted, she was being targeted. The entity, whatever it was, wanted something from her, something connected to the rituals that Margaret had performed. I knew I had to warn her. I raced back to the hospital, but Jane had already checked herself out. I called her, but she didn't answer. I drove to her house, my heart pounding in my chest. I found the front door unlocked. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The house was in disarray. Furniture was overturned, books were scattered everywhere, and the air was thick with the smell of dust and decay. Strange symbols were painted on the walls in what looked like blood. I found Jane in the living room, standing in the center of a circle of candles. Her eyes were closed, her body swaying gently. She was muttering something under her breath, a string of unintelligible words that sent a shiver down my spine. The shadowy figure was standing behind her, its form now clearly visible. It was tall and gaunt, with hollow eyes and a malevolent grin. Its skin was pale and translucent, and its fingers were long and skeletal. It reached out and placed a hand on Jane's shoulder. "Jane," I shouted. "Wake up, it's not real." She didn't respond. I ran towards her, trying to break the circle. But as soon as I stepped inside, a force slammed into me, sending me flying across the room. I landed hard, my head hitting the edge of a table. I lay there for a moment, dazed and disoriented. When I finally managed to sit up, I saw that the figure was still standing behind Jane. Its eyes were fixed on me, glowing with malevolent intent. I scrambled to my feet, desperate to do something, anything, to save her. I saw the wooden box lying on the floor, the letters and diary spilling out. I grabbed a page from the diary, a page filled with incantations and symbols. I didn't know what else to do. I started reading aloud, my voice trembling. Ad spiritum malignum exeab hac domo, I chanted. Ad tenebras exteriors, reverter. The room went cold. The candles flickered and died. The shadowy figure turned its attention to me. Its voice, a chilling whisper that seemed to echo in my mind, said, "You shouldn't have done that." Its eyes burned into mine, filled with hatred and rage. "Now you're next." The entity lunged. The page of the diary fell from my hand, and everything went black.